and welcome to PG.biz, our podcast. Again, another surprise because my cat is upstairs. I am down in the depths because this is, well, it was a dungeon. It seriously looked like a dungeon because we did have a cauldron in the corner. But now it has become the studio. This is it. This is going to be the studio where, if all goes well, in time for Gamescom, we will have live guests here, maybe even Hellsinger. Who knows? But in the meantime, yes, I am alone. Brian is off at the Fringe, and he tells me he's getting some great guests there. So I'm looking forward to that. And of course, here in my studio, I have to show it off. I just have to show it off. Acoustic paneling. This is going to be a serious place to have interviews. Speaking of interviews, we have Alex Haley. He is Principal Games Operation Manager over at Product Madness, and we catch up. We distill his very punchy presentation from Pocket Gamer, Live Ops Made Simple. We distill it into a very short crash course just for you. And following that, well, I catch up with Patty Toledo. You may know her as the creative mastermind who curates all the content at all the Pocket Gamer events. We'll catch up with her as well. But first, with Alex, we kick it off. Let it roll. Alexander Haley, talking about live ops at Product Madness, and that was the topic of your talk, but more importantly, it's your bigger message, because it's not just that they are very critical now, it's how you approach them, how you get started, how to keep it simple.
Time. Yeah, absolutely. Cashman Casino in the past year, we've scaled our operations by a twofold. We've got half of our team of new starters over the past year. Yet we've still been managing to churn out over 600 activities last year of what we're calling live ops events or activities. Other industries or other companies all seem to have slightly different definitions of what live ops is, and we've called it any kind of short-term event, effectively, which is a communication to a customer, set of challenges, an offer, boosters, time-limited content, things like that. And really, my whole speech this morning was about how to keep stuff simple, how to get the ground running, and eventually start to begin to scale your live ops operations and evolve the experience for customers, but by making sure that you're beginning with the fundamentals.
Now you set it up for a question. Now I have to ask, what are some of those fundamentals?
For a short-term event, if you want to increase the amount of engagement that you're going to get from your players and for your event, you need a short learning curve. People don't want to take on a very difficult, complex thing to understand in a short time frame. So enable yourself to make that engagement as much as possible, and ultimately make the most revenue from your campaigns by keeping it simple. Keeping it simple then enables you to add a lot of variety into your arsenal. You spend too long configuring one complex thing, and your arsenal is going to strain because you spent so much time trying to build the one big event. But focus on those small little things that you could do, quick adjustments, make a 5-day event 2 days and give people an increased reward for it or something like that. Those kind of things, just little tweaks that don't take too much configuration time but keep things fresh. Third one out of the 4 is to make sure everything is well documented, and I couldn't stress that enough. I've come into a team where everything isn't well documented. People have left the business and knowledge has been lost, and it's really pushes us back to foundations. Over the last year, we've been building everything up to where we need to be again. And then the final thing, if you do all of those things well, you can then start to collaborate with your product team, with your game economists, with your data scientists, and then you can start looking at your infrastructure as well and reviewing your tool set. But it all comes from having all of those core foundations in motion before you start looking at things like other talks here are about AI and machine learning and all these kind of buzzwords that are around in marketing at the moment. But you can't do them unless you've got your foundations set.
What are some of the events that you found that maybe marketers aren't thinking about? You know, I was talking to people at other companies. They're telling me something just as simple as a little bit of a different type of reward, a little bit of random rewards, mixing it up. Tell me one way you're mixing it up.
What we've been starting to do now is, now that we've got to a single offering for all people, it's come from the segmentation more than it has the offering. And we've started there at the very beginning. So we're now thinking of who are we targeting with what, instead of what is going to be the one size that fits all. We've got responsible gameplay to think about, and we don't ever want to be seen as pushing people beyond their limits. So the offering has to be different for those type of players to keep them engaged.
You are making certain to make that match between the event and the audience and the type of player. What does that require in real terms? I mean, you're lucky over at Product Madness. You have your own data department. You've been doing this in-house. But for people here at Pocket Gamer here, you know, they don't have that. So is there also a way to keep that simple?
Yeah, and this goes, so when I started in Product Madness 5 years ago, the game was a year old. And the department was handed over to me in an Excel spreadsheet and said, here's your flows, off you go. So it was ground zero. We got told, you aren't making any campaigns, your art team's bored, what are you going to do? Well, don't know. And that's where we started setting up all these simple campaigns, one size fits all, and started rolling those out. But again, we didn't run before we can walk. We started off slow and built up the arsenal of things. And as we then collaborated with data science and product, we started slowly building up those tools over time. And here we are 5 years later, still keeping those same core principles of keeping everything simple, but it's still a struggle to get there. You know, you don't have to be perfect, but as long as the revenue's rolling in from your activities, that's all that matters at the end of the day. And if you can keep incrementing on what you've been doing every year, you've hit your goals and targets.
Is there a frequency for live ops? Is there how often you change it up or how often you offer it? Seasonality is an easy one. You know, it's a certain season, put a certain type of cartoonish character in it. Boom, you're set for the season. That's an easy one. What are the others?
You only really want to be giving people like an extra couple of things to do on top of the core loop. Otherwise, then you're starting to build a different game entirely on top of what you're doing, and you're taking people away from the core loop, which you want to keep people engaging and giving people an opportunity to make that extra purchase. So keeping it simple, it's not just for yourself and your own understanding, it's for the player as well. Oh, I can see I've got my daily set of challenges to do over here and a one-time event for the year over here. Or I can just go and play the same game. That is enough for most players. And so when you add in seasonality and things like that, keep that in mind, that you might want to run loads and loads of Christmas campaigns, but people only got two arms. Don't pull them in three directions.
That's a simple, and that's on a t-shirt, actually.
Yeah.
You think about Alexander. 2 arms, not 3 directions.
Yeah.
What about when you're looking at the events themselves and what you're offering? Because some marketers are saying, I don't worry so much about that because I'm really getting the data. I'm seeing the behavior. So it's almost as if even losing is winning in a way.
Everything you should do should have a goal. And whether your goal is retention, which it sounds like the person that said that quote, it might well be. We're churning out campaigns and we're keeping people retained in the game. We're not necessarily making more money. That is a goal if you just want to keep your players in game and keeping your engagement metrics up. But if you want to start making more money, you need to think about what levers you can pull and what mechanics you have to certain type of players to drive that extra revenue. And if it's a low value player, as I said, it comes back to segmentation of what offering are you giving to those players and what targets do you want those players to achieve and how will you do that? And did you do it?
You talked about it before, the types of events, but I love hearing the weird, the wild successes, like you wouldn't expect it. And there's got to be one, Product Madness. It says it in the name. There's got to be some mad and wild event or success that you can share.
Yeah, I've got a good one. It was a really simple one, and this is why I love it so much. 3 years ago, I spent about 4 weeks on a single campaign. I was bored with the limitation that my tool set gave me. So I pushed the boundaries. I ended up having other people come and help me with my configuration, with my campaign design, people QAing it and everything. And we rolled it out. It's pretty average. All of that work for something very average, and it was really frustrating. And so then on the other hand, these little tweaks, and this is why I say they're so important. One we did for new players, instead of giving them a set of coins after they go low on coins for the first time, we gave people a choice, new installs only. And we said, do you want the free coins, or do you want to pay $1 for like 5 times the amount of coins? And this campaign was designed to be an onboarding challenge for a new member of staff, so that he could learn how to do A/B testing and configure the tool and everything. But what we were doing there is we're giving people that fear of missing out and targeting a player at the right time. And you'll hear a lot of people in their tool sets talking about doing that. And that's what makes their tool set so successful. It's about targeting the right people at the right time. We got lucky with that one. And so now we're looking at what else do we do with our onboarding journey, and how do we carry on targeting people in that right way, rather than spending all of that configuration time on that previous campaign I described.
That's sinking in. That is so super smart, because if I'm a new player, I'm like, well, I don't know how I'm going to be able to handle this. So maybe I want more coins right now, just in case I'm going to need them later. I'll get for $1, I'll get 5 times the amount. I'll play longer. Even if I'm stupid, I'll figure it out. Really, really smart. So what does that tell us about this? Because normally live ops was about keeping users engaged. This is about taking advantage of that onboarding, that moment of not quite knowing what's going on. And that, as you said, FOMO, not quite confusion, but things are vague. What does that tell us now about the opportunities for live ops? Because now that changes the game, like almost literally.
So we're actually called Game Operations, as per my title. We were used to be called CRM, and we rebranded because we felt like we were doing more in game as well as external communications, which traditional CRM teams had focused on. So that's the whole reason for the rebrand. But we did it with our in-house tool, which allowed us to churn out events without any extra development provided to us by the product team. So it allowed us to be really agile and be able to try out these things quickly. And I think that's the key. There's sometimes, campaigns you think are going to work really well because you put the effort into it, and other times things aren't. But that agility gives you the time to shotgun so many ideas out there, test them quick, learn from them, and move on to the next thing. And you can start getting small incremental revenue gains over time by making those quick changes. So that's the future, is providing you with the tools to be able to do things quickly, and keeping things simple and collaborating with other teams so you can slowly evolve.
So you've got your own team, very lucky. You've got your own tool, which probably people here would want to buy.
Sure,
no, not going to happen. Let's talk to people who building the teams, looking for the tools, not any particular vendor, but what it does say is no matter what you're doing, make certain that it allows you to be flexible, fast, adaptive.
It's and reactive. You want the ability to turn things on and off quickly, change things quickly, and ultimately be more engaging. And you may eventually hit a step in the road where you're reviewing your in-house tools and looking at the market and thinking, I'm behind. And it's something that we're going through at the moment, is reviewing all of our tool sets and finding that there's big gaps. And we're about to take on another provider now for some of our communications channels. And we're really looking forward to it, because the leaps and bounds that it should make from saving us time and turning us away from my live ops managers spending anywhere between 30 and 70% of their time configuring things, hopefully down to something maybe about 20% of the time, and they can start prioritizing ideas properly, coming up with new campaigns, analyzing things in more detail, and ultimately evolving their live ops.
Alexander, this has been a great and really helpful podcast interview for people who are moving down this road, because we're hearing so much about live ops. You call it game ops because it's CRM in it. Tell me, just as a final note, the team has to be behind it. The team has to be a part of it. Building that team is the science. Tell me a little bit about your team, who's on it, what's on it.
In my direct team, I'll say 2 senior managers and a manager, who then manage everyone else. Nice pyramid structure forms. Hiring those senior managers first off, and making sure that you've got them back to basics of like good management training, enthusiastic people that are quick learners, and then hiring other people then that don't necessarily have to be brainchilds in very heavy live ops experience, especially when you're learning in-house tools. Previous experience goes out the window. But you need people that are going to be analytical and enthusiastic, and able to listen to you, and ultimately people are going to want to work with you and that you can understand you. And that's been a challenge. Me with a bit of an East London accent, working with people from Spain, Ukraine, Israel, I've had to learn to slow down my speak just so that we can communicate properly, because they didn't understand me for the first couple of months. But getting those good senior management in places, those good management practices too, proper personal development plans, proper goals set, vision documents to align everything we're doing, and making sure that we're all going in one clear direction and focusing on all of our documentation is really the key to making a good team work. And then we have sub teams as like support. So we have like the our artists as well. They don't report to me, but they work as a kind of service desk and our partners. We have the QA team as well, are reporting to a central function as well. And then a lot of other functions are also kind of on loan to us that we work with. And it really enforces the kind of need to build good relationships with other teams instead of just one person deciding what the future is. Because I'm not going to be able to sit here and tell you what our perfect strategy is going to be, but give me a little while and I'll talk to the entire team and I'll be able to articulate that back to you eventually. Because I think the key to building a good roadmap is, for a start, it needs to be realistic and not just some idea of that someone's cut out at the top of their minds. We need to understand the full team capacity and then be able to have that good conversation that says, this is what I can deliver with my current team and tool set. This is what I could do with more.
Alexander, you said it's about communication. East London accent, although I'm American, didn't knock me out. So you've been doing really well working on that. Thank you so much for sharing. And above all, for keeping it simple. This is something that everyone can act on. So thanks again for your time.
All right. Thank you very much. Good to meet you.
And we move on to the next segment, just wrapping up the show and also wrapping up the work. As I said, it was once a dungeon and now it is becoming a fantastic studio where maybe I will be interviewing you at some point. But in the meantime, yes, I interviewed Patty Toledo, creative mastermind. She is the woman who curates all the events for Pocket Gamer, and she tells us how she has become and remains a top trends watcher in the industry, tells us a little bit about her background, and gives us some tips about how we can connect with some great minds in the industry as well and build that community. So take it away, Patty.
This is a great opportunity. Not only are we at an awesome show, but we get to sit down, and I've always wanted an excuse to speak with you and find out more about you. This is perfect timing because I see you've got your own agency, man. Patty for president. That is pretty awesome. I'll vote. But we know you as being like the woman with the energy, the connections. I mean, the driving force, one of the driving forces behind the events. Let's talk about you, Patty. So, I mean, you've already got a fan club. Where you come from anyway, Patty? Tell me that story.
I'm Brazilian, but I haven't lived in Brazil for over 20 years now. I lived in 14 different countries. I did everything that you can imagine. We can make a list. I did everything. But I have been working with creative industry for the last 30 years, and mostly because I love it. I love music, I love games, I love films. I love the creative force behind it and how much hard work and sweat, tears, blood that goes into it. And I like being involved in it.
I have to say, I did see you. It was, I think, maybe Helsinki, where it was not just that you were moderating a panel. I mean, you really put yourself into it. And I thought, shit, you were a roadie? And your bucket list is like, there isn't much on it, right?
Oh, but the funny ones that everybody goes like, holy, is I used to be an MMA fighter. I did pro wrestling.
Oh, wow.
I did all the courses to be a stewardess or a flight attendant, as we call nowadays. And then I have a ton of tattoos, so I couldn't be a flight attendant, but I learned, I had the license. So I have been a curious person that try to learn as much as possible and get involved in as much as possible in my life.
But I mean, it is amazing to curate an event like this because I've been to a lot of sessions, and I think it's time to tell the Pocket Gamer biz, the whole community, what goes into something like this. I mean, what is it? You are a trend watcher. You nailed it here. Some great sessions. I love the inclusion in the metaverse. My favorite, personal. And some other cool stuff like how to make ads that audiences love. So, what is it? How are you getting in touch with these trends?
Oh, it's a lot of research. One of the things is that you have to never be afraid of learning new things and always be very humble in the fact that although I know a lot, I know very little in comparison to the experts. So it's always looking what is going on out there, who are the trendsetters, and try to engage with them so they can share their knowledge. I think this is the bottom line of everything: is being always very open-minded about what is going on and pinpointing who are the most important people to be talking about that. And sometimes the most important people are not necessarily the CEO or CEOs of the biggest companies. They might be a programmer in an indie development company, small behind the scenes, but you have to really have an eye to see who are the key point, like the key people that can share knowledge the most.
What I love about these events, new names and new faces, right? So you got a different crowd here. Now you say you research them, you do connect with them. Maybe you could point out just a couple gems because I mean we'll be seeing some of it in the coverage about the event, in the videos from the sessions, but give us your pick. You're a connoisseur. You know who's cool.
Ooh, like this is the hardest question ever because we have about 300 speakers. Like I will feel so guilty in who I pinpoint. I did a fireside chat with Olia, the CEO from Sanglo. And Sanglo is a new company that I thought it was really interesting. It's investment. I know people think investment is dry, but I thought it was really interesting that they try to make a different point of view from the VCs and angel investors. I really enjoyed the talk from Space Ape about what they are doing with the music verse, just because music is so close to my heart and how they are playing with games and music at the same time. I thought it was extremely interesting. I love the indie track. Like I always love the indie track, but I would say the third one I would say was the AI track, just because AI has been such a groundbreaking technology this year. And I think we're just scratching the surface still. There is so much that is gonna be done in the AI scene. I'm really looking for example, for the next events where we can tackle how AI, metaverse, and game development is all connecting each other. That would be an interesting thing to see, especially when people already realize that ChatGPT you can create a whole app with the AI. You don't need to program anything. This is gonna be groundbreaking for a lot of developers. So we had a really interesting talk in AI with Ludo about how they are using technology, but also how indie developers are using AI to change their marketing and making marketing more accessible and getting art and it is really interesting to see how technology is playing with game development at the moment.
So you're curating the event for Seattle as well, right?
I do it for all the events.
But seriously, you curate these events and you're like, oh, well, I just read a lot and I connect with people. That is an understatement, man. Um, Give me an idea of what you're reading, other than, of course, Pocket Gamer. But, there's got to be other places. Where should they be looking to find the cool people that you tap into?
Normal things, of course, you have to be reading Pocket Gamer, you have to be reading Gama Sutra, and which is not Gama Sutra anymore, but hey, I'm old, it was still Gama. That's how I know it. Or
That too. It's Gamma Sutra for me.
and Venture Beat and tech, all the tech. But I like doing something that most people would go, that's weird. But I like seeing, for example, TikTok influencers. What are the games that they are talking about and the trends that they are finding? Um, content creators in different social media, they can be quite amazing for you to see not only what they are talking to the players, but what the players are talking back. Because I think because we want to educate game developers, bringing them closer to the community is really important, and they won't be brought to the community unless they listen to what everybody's saying, including content creators. I try to watch as many talks from other conferences as well. I think the key to be original is to know what the competition is doing. If you don't know what everybody else is talking, you tend to fall into the same traps all the time. So I do that too. And mostly I was also talking to people. I think networking is key. I talk to developers all the time. I try to listen to their concerns and then work that on schedule as much as I can.
So tell me what your average day looks like, because to connect with these companies, these trends, this stuff, which is, you're right, all the companies here have to be doing it. I was in sessions where it was like, well, if you want to find out the creative that really works, what you need to do is look at what people are doing on TikTok and what works there and what the influencers are talking about. So absolutely, finger on the pulse. But that is like, what does a day like that look like? I mean, you're going to be watching everything everywhere. So,
it's more complicated
coffee.
than that. Yeah. Yeah, because besides that, I have 2 other jobs.
Oh my God.
So I literally have 3 jobs. I do the content for Still Media. I'm the marketing director of a technology company, and I do consultancy for a creative agency.
That's why you're so happy about AI. Maybe you can offload just a little bit. I don't know.
No, it's all time organization. It's trying to be as effective as possible with your time management. So I work a lot, but I try to get a really good balance between work and relaxation. Over the years, I learned what works for me, how many hours I can do in which topic. I'm very careful about having different jobs that have different mindsets, so they don't compete with each other. So doing one work uh, relaxes the others. It's a play between the work, but I end up working a lot. There are some secrets, but I'm not gonna give my.
No, you can tell me later though, right? Because I'm like, I want to be like you, man. No, seriously, because you have put together. Obviously, it's a team effort, right? But when I think about the topics here and where this is going, what's up in Seattle, give us a little look into Seattle.
One thing is not only knowing what are the trends around the world, is what resonates the most with that region, and even though it's an international event all the time, you want to serve the community that you are offering the event at. So a lot of things that are, for example, in the US, there is a lot more focus on investment, blockchain, and NFTs because that's really hot there. And then you try to balance that with also a lot of talks about the indies because you have communities like Seattle Indies and IGDA Seattle that are very strong in that area. And then you balance with also AAA and PC because then you're talking Seattle, you have Valve, you have Microsoft. You have to be able to nurture the talents that are working on those companies as well. So I always try to focus on what happening in the region, what do they need, and then do the balance between both parts.
We need to know who is behind the scenes. So here I am. I purposely said, Patty, spotlight on you. Now everybody knows about you. Are you like open to still more communication? Can everyone listening or watching say, hey, yeah, you're right. I want to get in touch with Patty, or maybe vote for her, right? Because it's president here. This is serious. This is serious here. No, but seriously.
President of what? I don't know. Like class president. I don't know.
Another dimension, Patty, another dimension where we both belong. But seriously, do you ever say to yourself, no, I'm done, I know enough people, or hey, this is like going to open up new doors?
Oh, no, there is never a thing like I know enough people or I know enough. I think the moment you turn into I know enough, you died. If we learned anything from the pandemic is that we're nothing without our network.
That's why I wanted to meet up with you. I mean, Patty, you really are the real deal. May I just put down the microphone, give you a big hug? This show is all about how to do your job better, how to make an amazing game, how to market it, and you have a say. So if you have a story or know someone we need to shine a light on, then we would love to hear from you.
We want to hear from you. We want to reflect the reality of the mobile games market in all its wonderful complexity and strangeness. So if you have any suggestions for us, if you have any feedback for us, you can always get in touch. You can email us at podcast@pocketgamer.biz. You can find us on Twitter @PGBiz, and you can reach out to us through the pocketgamer.biz website. If you're interested in listening to all of our podcasts, you can find them at pocketgamer.biz/podcast, and we would love to hear your thoughts on future shows.
And we've got you covered on all the major platforms, so subscribe to the audio podcast, as Brian said. Look for us on YouTube. If you want to read it, hey, you can do that too, because we have a companion post for you as well on the pocketgamer.biz website.
Tune in again for the next edition of the pocketgamer.biz podcast, and we look forward to speaking to you in the near future. Until then, I'm Brian Baglow.
I'm Peggy Anne Salz, and that's a wrap until next week.